All right, we're already all giggles here right now because we were going a little bit of this here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mysterious Galaxy virtual event. I am Nick, the Director of Events for the store. Today, I present to you Amparo Ortiz and Crystal Maldonado. Hello, both of you.
Hey, friends.
Hey, friends. And that's so catchy.
Hey, friends. We, of course, are here to show off the latest release for Amparo. Oh, it has to be a sunrise, so I have to do this.
Oh, okay. So dramatic. I love it.
Drama is me.
That's perfect. I'm going to do that from
That's
now on.
really good.
Last sunrise in ETERNA.
Yay!
And sunset. Okay.
And sunset.
It was a quick one.
It was very quick, yes.
So not only if you purchase any of Amparo's books, we have on the link below if you're watching this live, but also any of Crystal's books. Another sunset. Signed book. Or sunrise. Another sunrise. Book plates here. So we have a lot. Oh, Crystal, you put hearts on all of them, I think.
I did put hearts on all of them. Well, my thought was,
cute.
I have no idea what book people will buy, so like, here we go. Here's a heart.
It just makes a sense. It makes sense.
And then, of course, we have, oh, if the focus will do its thing, maybe.
Oh, there you go. Beautiful.
Great, yeah. Beauty. Beauty guru,
And
yes.
yes, supporting these authors by purchasing their books. Again, not only supports the authors, but also helps support the store, Mysterious Galaxy in this case, to help continue doing wonderful events with wonderful authors like these two. Amparo Ortiz is the author of BLAZEWRATH games, which I love, and DRAGONBLOOD Ring. She's also the co-editor of Our Shadows Have Claws, which if you didn't catch last year's event with it, you can watch it on YouTube because we recorded it. It's on there forever.
No pressure. Oh my God.
No pressure.
A young adult horror anthology featuring myths and monsters from Latin America. In conversation, we have Crystal Maldonado, a young adult author with a lot of feelings.
True.
What are some of those feelings, Crystal?
Excitement.
Excitement.
That's like for tonight.
Her debut novel, Fat Chance Charlie Vega, was a New England Book Award winner, a Cosmopolitan Best New Book, and a Kirkus Best YA Fiction of 2021. While her sophomore novel, No Filter and Other Lies, was a Pop Sugar and 17 Best New YA. And those titles I mentioned, again, you can purchase them through the store. If you're watching right now, click the link below. I'm going to go ahead and leave it to these two to go ahead and have a wonderful discussion. If you have any questions that you want to ask Amparo later in the event, there's another link that says Ask a Question at the bottom here. Submit your questions there, and we'll get to those later in the program. All right, enough of me. I'll see you all later. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Hey, bestie.
Hey, bestie. And hey, besties in the chat. Hello. Thank you all for being here.
That is
so
many
sweet.
Friends. This is wonderful.
Yes.
I feel like
I paid them all to be here. They're all on my payroll.
I wasn't going to put you on blast like that, but
that's all on me.
I'm just so excited to see your face because I
feel like we ever done an event together? I feel like we haven't.
No, we've been to each other's events, just being that person in the crowd that's like, oh my God, I love you.
Yes,
but
exactly.
This is, I think, our first official event together. So
I masterminded it. And I did it.
Well, I am honored to be here, especially because I really love, I love all of your books, but I really did love this book especially.
No, I'm kidding.
You're just incredible, like everything you do, and your writing is so fun and refreshing, but it's also like immersive and evocative, and it's just the way you can sort of combine both of those things where readers are having fun but also feeling all the feelings. It's just chef's kiss perfect.
Well, I may say the same about your books because I don't think I've ever felt more turmoil, like emotionally, outside of horror novels. I feel like contemporary romance or just contemporary novels for me are emotional roller coasters for me. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
Intense stuff.
It is intense. Horror and feelings, they just have a lot in common, I think.
Yes, they do,
you're
sadly.
Scared, you're terrified. You're also scared and terrified when you're falling in love. It's a lot.
Yes,
so.
It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So let's kick things off with a little elevator pitch from you about Last Sunrise in Eterna, and just like tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, this book right here is essentially my third young adult fantasy novel, and it's the first one that is set entirely in Puerto Rico, which is where I live, and and I feel like elevator pitch would be a cranky goth, which would be the girl on the cover, who hates elves. That's the prince there, who kidnaps her mother as punishment for her stealing elf corpses in order to get some money. So now she has a week to save her mom, and in order to save her, she has to actually participate in a series of magical challenges. And if she fails, then her mother...
Yup. That was masterful. And we said this
look at that.
I feel like you're really good with the summarizing because you're so good at Twitter. So go follow
Twitter is an art form that few have mastered, and I am one of them.
You have.
But you have as well. Like, you have way more experience with social media than I do. And I feel like whenever I see that you have posted something, I stop what I'm doing and I interact, I engage with it.
But you are like the ultimate cheerleader on social media. And I feel
sadly, for a lot of people, they're like, why? Like, my energy, it's too much.
The best feeling in the world. Like, every message I get from you, I'm just like, oh my God, I feel so special.
Exactly.
Okay. But I want to talk about our beautiful goth girl, Seven, because I want to be her, or maybe I might be in love with her. I don't know which one it is, but either way, she's just like this amazing badass who just like loves literature, and she has a thirst for vengeance. Like, come on. Very relatable.
She's a bit unhealthy.
Okay, so tell us everything that went into creating our amazing goth queen, please.
So I always felt like watching fantasy movies, horror movies, I always felt this pull toward characters that wore dark clothing or were considered evil, but essentially they just were not too conventionally attractive. They were quite monstrous. And like they wore a lot of heavy dark makeup and clothes, and their hair was black. And I'm like, why do I want to be like them? They're like the bad people or the monsters of these movies and shows that I'm interacting with. And then I realized as I like got older, I don't know if you've seen this movie. I'm assuming you have. It's called Underworld.
I have seen this movie.
I don't know why I laughed. I'm like, Underworld? I immediately latched onto the idea of me wearing a trench coat and boots and just being in leather all the time and Kate Beckinsale. Yes. I was like, I wouldn't actually wear these clothes out every day, especially living on a tropical island. It's just not feasible for me. And then I realized that emotionally I was aligning with the aesthetic. And I realized that one day I would like to eventually write from the perspective of a goth character, but I just didn't know where to put her. I didn't know what her story was. I just knew what she looked like.
Yep.
And then it wasn't until I realized that I wanted to write about elves that were Puerto Rican, essentially making them up because we don't have them in our lore here. And I realized, well, elves are universally loved. Like, they're considered cool. Yeah. And a lot of people want to be either vampires or elves or fairies. So I felt like, would my character despise them? Even though she's a goth. And goths tend to like beautiful, complicated, heartbreaking things, right? Or like mysterious things. So I felt like it would be weird to have a goth hate elves. And that's when the personal story started building for me. But it took me a while. It took me years to finally give her a story.
I love that she was like a concept, and you knew you were going to find something for her. It just had to be the right story.
Yeah, I'm sure you felt the same way. Like, you probably, maybe it's been a subplot in one of your novels or something that you haven't published yet. Totally. And you're like, oh, I think I want to write about this, but it doesn't fit the actual book you're working on. Or maybe you are on deadline and it won't make sense to add something in such a tight schedule. So you're like, oh, I'll write about this later.
Right, you always got to keep that in your back pocket. You like ideas, characters, even sometimes just like scenes where you're like, oh, I want to write a scene in blah, blah, blah. Like for some reason, I really want to write a carnival scene. I don't know why. I have no book. So they got like a cute, like these people, maybe they
it could be a date.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right?
It could be a date or like something goes disastrously wrong. Why am I like we're like now brainstorming here? This is a session. We're a critique group.
Okay, so now we know where Sevim kind of came from, but I also want to hear about this amazing other main character, Prince Arrow, who is like this romantic, sugar-loving, rose-making elf. Yes. And like, I just tell us everything about him. And I imagine he was such a fun character to write. This is totally me just assuming. I don't know if he actually was fun, but like what went into creating him for you?
I feel like a lot went into him because he came first as a character for me in terms of his personal story. I knew that I wanted the youngest prince in a family. So at some point in my life, I was going to write a young royal, and it would be a boy. And in this case, it wasn't technically a boy, it was an elf prince. And I knew he was Puerto Rican. I knew he loved donuts, but I knew that he was really sad for some reason. I just didn't know why he was sad. And I felt like he's kind of like, I don't know if you know Ryan Gosling. I'm assuming you know who Ryan Gosling is. That was a sarcastic question. So I don't know. He was promoting. I used to watch a lot of celebrity interviews back in the day. Like that was one of my hobbies. I would just watch press junkets for hours. Yes, it's very sad about like my life, my social life. But as a teenager,
how dare you say that about my friend?
But Ryan Gosling, I think he was promoting the Blue Valentine, the movie with Michelle Williams.
Yep.
It's a really sad movie. And he said, he was describing his own character. And he said something that I have never forgotten. So he said, my character is someone that everyone loves, but no one respects. Aww. So I wanted to write a character that did not love himself, but commanded respect from everyone else for just being a prince. And then I was like, okay, so he's sad. Why doesn't he love himself? And so that kind of spiraled into his actual backstory, his family dynamic, and how hard he crushes on a girl, a human girl, who is stealing his kind's bodies in order to pay her mother's bills. So I feel like it's her unemployed mother's bills, I should clarify. So I feel like it was a bit of everything that I've loved growing up about male celebrities and my own crushes growing up in high school and middle school.
Yes.
I was like, they're really loud, really charming. Everyone likes them, but no one really understands anything about them personally. It's like they're shadows. So yeah.
Okay, that was so deep. And also, I just want to talk about Ryan Gosling now.
Yes, Ryan Gosling forever. And he's married to a Latina, so
I know. So
he appreciates us.
I know. We can hang out with him, right? Like that's totally
I know some Spanish, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so I love that. So one of the things that I really fell in love with throughout this whole book is just how beautifully you portrayed Puerto Rico. So I'm also Puerto Rican. I have not lived on the island, but I have visited many times, and that's where my dad's family is from. And I just remember as a kid growing up thinking like, oh my God, I would give anything to read about even one Puerto Rican character anywhere who is not like
just one person.
Just one. And now you're out here like creating the most badass Boricuas, right? Who fight dragons and slay elves and who are literal elves and like can do magic. So like I just want to gush about how amazing that is and then talk about like why stuff like this matters and why this is important to you as an author to create this in your fantasy stories.
So I think it's very important to note that my very first manuscript that I finished was not only just terrible, but it's the only manuscript I've ever written with a white main character. And it was right around the time where I decided that I wanted to become an author, like publish my work.
Yeah.
And I was reading more because I was trying to figure out what kind of writer I was, and also like see what the market looked like. So I realized that there were a lot of white characters, specifically male white characters in fantasy. And I was writing essentially a white boy that was extremely privileged. So none of those things made sense to me on a personal level. I can relate to him.
Yeah.
But I was like, third person, it should be fine. It was terrible. And not just because of who he was, but because I just wasn't connected to his story at all. And he was exploring grief that I've never felt. And I was just, and he was falling in love with a girl. And I was like, what is going on? I don't know what I'm doing. So why do I want him to make out with this guy best friend? Anyway. So I realized
we do that too. So
yes, I realized that I maybe should explore something different. And what changed initially was just the fact that my main characters were not only girls, but they were Puerto Rican girls. And it just became something that I wanted to see in print and I wasn't seeing, just like you mentioned. And then I realized that people were like excited about reading these books. They literally didn't care about much. They were like, Puerto Rican elves or Puerto Rican dragons? We're there.
I'm in.
Because it was like beyond just the main character of the human being like Puerto Rican. It was a fantasy creature that they've been used to seeing from a Western European perspective. And now they were just from a Caribbean perspective. And it was specifically the island that they were either born in or their families were from or their family members were from. And they were like, okay, I'm interested in reading this. And I was like, but you don't even know what it's about. Like,
it doesn't matter.
It's weird how starved we are for these stories, right? And I feel like what you're doing and what other authors are doing in the young adult middle grade space is so important because these are formative years for people and readers tend to read up. So if you're reading something that is not supposed to be in your age group, but you're so excited to read it because you feel seen for the first time, it means a lot to the creator, to everyone behind the product. But you're just like, this is more than a product. This is something that is impacting a life and it's going to shape it for the rest of its years. So I don't know. It's something that came out of intense selfishness. I was like, well, maybe I should put myself in the story. I'm gonna do the your name trope on these entire on these self-insert. It's a self-insert, plainly. And then it was like my career.
Well, I think you nailed it. Like, and you said it so beautifully. Just these are not just books, right? We are trying to write these stories where people really do feel like they get to see a part of themselves or a part of their lives on these pages in ways that they've not had the opportunity to do before. And I think it's like what you're doing especially is so special because I do think the fantasy genre has been so overwhelmingly white for so long. Which is not to say there haven't been books that have done representation well, but just it has felt very, I don't know, tough to make room for other voices and other experiences. So I just love how you do this. And I remember I was at an event, like a library event, for a bunch of Latinx kids, and they asked for a recommendation for a book, and I recommended BLAZEWRATH games, and I was like, Puerto Rican but dragons, and they were like, ah! Like one of the kids was just like screaming, just I have to read this. It was so intense and so amazing, and I felt like it just got to the heart of like why this is so needed, right? Like he was so excited and just overjoyed. So I just had to put that out there.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
And I feel like also like your books, I'm an adult. I don't like saying that too much because first of all, I'm very short. So people tend to like ask for my ID and I'm like, I'm clearly over 21. Anyway, the point is that it would be a disservice to you and to your work to not like admit that when I'm reading young adult literature, I tend to ask myself, what would I do if I were this character? Would I do the same thing? Would I make the same mistake? Would I learn the same lessons? And young children or teenagers or people who are reading these books, they sometimes not only need to see someone that looks like them, but someone who lives like them and has the same struggles, because sometimes they feel like if they make a mistake, their life is over and they can't do like a do-over. And it's true, you can't have do-overs in life, but you can move forward with more knowledge, more wisdom. And sometimes those things, they don't really, it's not landing as well as it would have landed if they had seen themselves on the page.
It's true. No, it's so true. Sometimes this is why I make like messy characters, because I'm like,
yes, and I love them. Keep them coming, please.
Because then you feel better about yourself too. You're like, oh, I wouldn't do that at least. So
yes,
I'm
exactly.
You know?
So I'm like, I'm an adult and I know better. I actually don't know better sometimes. Yeah. But for example, Kat, I was like, oh my God, like there were things that I was like, please stop. Please stop.
Yep.
Please stop. Please stop. And then
like, girl,
she didn't stop. So yes. And I really love, exactly. Johnny says, we love mess. I completely agree. Without mess, we don't grow.
Exactly. Mess gives me life. Same.
Yes, it does, Melanie. It does.
Well, that's exactly right. And I love how you keep it.
Oh, by the way, sorry to interrupt. It's Melanie's birthday today.
Melanie, happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Melanie!
We should have brought a little cake. Here's a pretend cake, and you can blow out the candle.
We have one in spirit. It's inside of us. Exactly. Yes, everyone wish Melanie a happy birthday. Perfect.
Oh, I can't believe she's spending her birthday with us.
It's ridiculous. Like,
oh my God,
I'm honored, but it's ridiculous.
Okay. Okay, sorry. This is just what happens when we get together. You and I.
Just it's a whole thing.
Okay, world building. You are the queen.
My gosh.
Worship you.
Oh, no,
Can
don't.
we talk about? Well, too bad, too late. Can we talk about how you so masterfully juxtaposed like real places in this book? Obviously, it was set in Puerto Rico, so it's like starts at a Burger King. Like you're like, yeah, I'm in this. Let's do this. Like there's obviously also the fictional world building that you had to do in this too. So what was that like, developing this world that meshed kind of the real and the fiction?
It was actually challenging because when you're writing fantasy, the idea mainly is, or the belief is, that you make everything up and it's a free-for-all. There are no rules, but there are rules to magic. There are rules to geography. There are rules to characters. Like everything has certain limitations. And I feel like from experience, I inserted places or experiences or things that I remember, or just like elements of my youth or my childhood, I should say, because I'm still young, and we're all still young.
We're
so
babies.
I feel like, yes, exactly. So I feel like those things are all familiar to me, and so I inserted them in the book because they felt appropriate for the characters, but they also felt knowledgeable and familiar to the people who would read the book eventually. Because when we read about Puerto Rican characters, for the most part, we're reading diaspora experiences, which are valid and we need them. But I feel like Islander experiences are vastly different in the sense that, you know, we don't speak the same way. Even when we're speaking English or Spanish, we have our own slang, we have our own frame of references, so it's just different for us. And I felt like, of course, I mean, the BLAZEWRATH Games duology has a diaspora kid as the main character, and I was like, well, now it's time for the Islander kid to have her say, and it is a more contained story. And of course, ETERNA does not exist. We do not have an island, an elf island. I wish.
How dare you say that?
But we do not have it. So it was mostly me just figuring out. And also I loved writing this book in the sense that it connected me more to our history. And I felt like there were a lot of things that I already knew and I always wanted to talk about. But since I wasn't necessarily alive during some of the backstory that we see in the book, I felt more connected thanks to research and thanks to listening to other people and just having those difficult conversations throughout my college year specifically. I was like, this is something that I personally haven't seen in English, like printed in English.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was not my duty, but something that I felt a call to do. Yes.
Yeah. You can say duty. You can like
it wasn't my duty.
Pat yourself on the back.
As a Capricorn, I felt like it was my
do this.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I want to invite audience questions as well. And I have like a million questions, so if y'all don't ask them, don't worry, because I can just talk forever. But I did want to remind folks that there is an ask a question button, and so you guys can ask your questions. But otherwise, we're just gonna keep chatting. Okay, can we talk romance in this book too, please? Because the pining was so good. And there is like something delicious about people being in denial about their feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Same. Like I have a lot of feelings, but I also reject a lot of feelings. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in therapy. It's fine.
Very important. Very important.
Go to therapy.
Go to therapy if you can, please.
Yeah, if you can. But so Prince Arrow is like this hopeless romantic, and so I just feel like he is there for us romance lovers who are just dreamy sighing over everything and just like, oh my god, do they like me? So what were some of your favorite parts about writing the romantic scenes and the pining and all of that goodness in this book?
Well, I would like to say that it's my most romantic book that I've published, because in the BLAZEWRATH Games duology, the first one really doesn't have any like prominent romance, and the second one does have a romantic subplot, but it's very like not super prominent anyway, because it's not the main subplot. Or the main plot, I should say. And then, but I do love those two characters together, Lana, my main character, and her love bae boyfriend-ish crush, her superstar crush, because I'm not going to say who it is in case you haven't read it yet. But yeah, it's definitely someone that I connected to him mostly in the sense that he does like her, but he doesn't know how to approach the situation. And in this book, I loved writing Aro being so forward, because now as an adult, I find myself more secure in my attraction. So if I like someone, it's not like I'm going to just like write them letters in the sky with the clouds and all of that. I'm not putting up like blips or banners or whatever, but I'm definitely more aware of what I am attracted to. And I'm not like as daydreamy as I used to be as a teenager, because I daydreamed a lot about crushes and such. Of daydreamers, we are all authors. We tend to brainstorm and daydream. Serious. But Sevim is someone I've never actually related to, because she suppresses and she denies. So I've never been like that. I've mostly just been quiet about what I like or who I like, but not to the point where I was like, I don't like this person. Why am I doing this?
I don't know. I'm into
I don't know what happens when you watch a lot of Love Island. But I feel like my favorite thing about Aro is like he is so curious about the world through Sevim's eyes. So I feel like him taking an interest in Victorian literature, in poetry, in art, and in things that he's not necessarily good at or knowledgeable about is a great indication that he is genuine about his attraction. But Sevim is like doubting it, because she's like, this is my enemy. He wants me. He wants to arrest me, and he's kidnapped my mom. Like,
I feel like anybody would,
not someone I should trust.
Anybody would have their suspicions, so I get it.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got some great audience questions, so I'm just gonna get started in here. So, when you were discussing goth characters at the beginning of our chat and how dark has typically equaled bad in media. Is this a bias that you think is still prevalent in today's fantasy series?
Absolutely. I mean, and the whole point of the fantasy genre is to reimagine what exists and to envision what could be. Yet, we are still seeing the same tropes recycled over and over again. And I feel like, for example, we have a lot of people that are adapting properties that have already had adaptations, whether it's movies or television shows. We have seen the same exact dichotomies when it comes to the dark and the lights. And why am I changing my accent? Anyway, the point is that you see a lot of these dark characters are like the terrible people or the monsters. Yep. And I'm like, but why? Like, that's literally the best way to dress and look. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, I love my colors, but I also feel like we're not doing any, the genre deserves more, and it should be more of a playground instead of like a seat at the popular kids table, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, we love tropes, but there's also needs to be different takes on tropes. It shouldn't always be the same, like, cookie cutter. This is what a character looks like. Because they're dressed in dark clothes, that means they're bad. Like, let's get a little creative here.
And also, in like, when you look at like Norway, Sweden, all of these European countries that do have elves, in Germany, they have like the elves that we know with the elongated ears, and they're very tall and beautiful, long hair, all that stuff. There's usually a divide between the dark elves, who are ugly, like vicious, they have no morals, they will steal, ravage, destroy anything. And I'm like, but why are they like that? Why can't the monstrous actually be good? Like, have you not seen a Disney movie in your life?
You heard it here. Watch more Disney movies.
Yes, watch more Disney movies. Always. That's the solution to life.
Solution. I love it. This is another great question, which I love. How did you come up with the trials in the book? They were so intense. They were so scary.
Well, actually, thank you, first of all, for like acknowledging that there are magical trials in the book, because in the first draft, the very first draft, there were none. They were, well, actually, that's a lie. There were, but they were super tame. So in comparison. And so my editor came back to me and she was like, this feels like a middle grade novel. Like, the things that they have to do feels kind of like gym class. It doesn't feel like life or death. So not that everything is life and death in the book, but I was like, you know what? I understand what you're saying. And that's when I kind of made it a little bit more complex, because I don't know if you know this, but my bachelor's degree is in psychology. And I've always been super interested in the Jungian archetypes. So I felt like I used the main ones, like the persona, the anima, and the shadow, and the ego or the self. If you are also a BTS fan, you will understand these terms, or you're familiar with them. But I essentially wanted to create challenges that aligned with Carl Jung's vision of society and the contradicting elements of who we are.
Okay, you sound so smart right now, and I'm just.
I sometimes can be.
Yeah, I know those words.
Just sometimes, not all the time. It's not a 24/7 thing.
I love it though. So, who were some of your favorite Elvish and Gothic inspirations, and how difficult was it to blend both of those things into your book?
Yeah, so I did mention Celine from Underworld. She is a vampire, but I also, and this is going to sound, again, like a copy-paste, Blade was a huge inspiration of mine as a younger person. Also half human, half vampire. So vampires essentially were what I was drawn to, but it was mostly the more gritty, like less romance-heavy vampires. It was mostly like I'm like tormented, like what is
your voices are making my whole night. I'm
so sorry.
No
one signed up for this. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry I interrupted.
When it comes to elves, I feel like this is gonna be really cliche, but Legolas in the movies, the Lord of the Rings movies, I was like, why is this elf not talking as much as he should? Like, he is a very ancient being. He's powerful. He's very attractive, but I don't really know who he is. And so it kind of made me like read the books and realize that yes, he has a really rich backstory, but I still don't like vibe with all of it. I still have questions. So essentially, if I don't understand something, I'll eventually write a book about it.
You love a challenge.
Yes, I do, sadly.
Well, I used to love Legolas. I had a tapestry from Hot Topic.
Oh my gosh, that is wild.
Back in the day that I had hung on my wall, like
incredible.
Between my like Britney Spears and Backstreet Boys posters.
Oh my gosh, like we were the same person. We literally were the same person.
We were meant to be buddies. Like this is wonderful.
Oh, there's no question about that at all. No, absolutely not.
Okay, we have a great question from the birthday girl, Melanie. Was the Puerto Rico historical aspect part of your first draft, or did that sort of come after? And can you talk a little bit about the research process for that? Did you enjoy it, or what was that like?
It was always present because the way that it's presented in the first draft is not the way that it's ultimately presented in the printed final copy. So in the first draft, the elves were not originally from the island of Vieques. They were always from ETERNA. Like ETERNA was it was a very small stretch of land. I kind of want to call it an island, but it's just like a very small stretch of land that was inherently theirs. They created it, and they only them can live in it and like visit it, right? But upon further discussions with my editor, we realized that Vieques is so important to the story and to Sevim's backstory. And we realized that it would be more logical for the elves to have been essentially displaced. So they are from Vieques originally, and they had to create ETERNA in order to live a better life for themselves, a safer life, let's just say. And in terms of the research, it was bittersweet because I grew up knowing a lot about how the conditions in Vieques are still to this day prevalent. Like they usually have challenges that shouldn't be had by anyone. However, it gets a little bit sadder, or it gets more sad to know that they're literally right next door. They're right across from us. And it feels like such a distant land to them and to us here on the mainland, because we call Puerto Rico the mainland here. Even though Puerto Rico is just an archipelago, it's a lot of little stretches of land connected or floating around each other. And I feel like it was bittersweet in the sense that I knew I wanted to include it, but it was also quite hurtful to see, for example, Vieques is the one place in our entire archipelago that has the highest rate of cancer. And it's just something that is a product of colonialism. And sadly, to this day, we still see the after effects of things that were long past or are long past. So, yeah.
Oof. Let's just talk about colonialism.
We know well.
No, that was, I loved hearing about that. I was curious about that myself and wondering just how much you kind of had to research versus how much you just live, right? And know because you are part of the island. And so it's interesting to hear and have you know that you like in your research, you discovered such sadness too.
Yeah.
That's so bittersweet.
That's never something that like illnesses in general are not fun to unless you're like a scientist, I guess. That's fun for you. It's fun for you, but not to like a person who is normal.
Yeah.
I mean, and I say normal loosely, quotation marks.
Yeah. Are we normal? I don't really think so, but that's okay.
Still up for debate.
Okay, another great question. Given that this is your third young adult book, how has your experience as an author changed since debuting in the industry? And how do you persist in the industry amidst all of the delicious upheaval that has happened and is happening now?
I feel like the biggest change would be in mindset, because there are very few things you can control in this industry. One of them is what you put out, like what you create. And sometimes you do have this conversation in your own head of like, what does the market demand right now? What are people looking for, readers and editors, and just like what is the hype, or where is the hype? Yeah. But at the same time, you're also looking at yourself. What are your interests? What is your voice? Would it work in this? Would it work in that, on that? So that's essentially what's changed the most is my mindset. Like when I debuted, I was like, the world was a free-for-all for me. I was like, I have no frame of reference for any experience. I don't know what a launch party is. I don't know how it's going to go for me. I don't know like promoting, what is promoting, like an interview, me doing an interview. I had no idea how to do any of those things. Right. Yeah. So I just knew how to be myself, and that's never changed. But my mindset around how to show what is essentially my creative side as also like I'm a marketer of my creative side, and I'm my biggest advocate because I know my work better than other people, sadly. And I say sadly because living with my characters, it's not fun sometimes, but I definitely think that if something needs to be written, I will write it. If it needs to get out of me, it will be out of me, right? And I think that how do I deal with the upheavals is understanding that, again, you have very little control over a lot, and that is okay. You shouldn't want to control everything. You shouldn't want to predict everything all the time, because if you do that, you're taking away the magic of what this industry actually brings to your life, which is that surprise. Sometimes you think an opportunity is going to happen, and when it doesn't happen, it's fine if you're disappointed or disillusioned. It does not mean it's the end of your career. It does not mean that you will never publish again, or that all of the other authors despise you, the bookstores despise you, booksellers will never touch your books ever again. Like, it's just essentially allow yourself to lose control, because it's fine.
That's great advice. And do you... I think so. Like, kind of just letting go and letting it be. Like, I know that sounds silly, but like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but for me, each book and the writing of it and the promoting of it has been so different.
For sure.
I feel like it changes depending on where you are in your personal life, where you are in your career, what your interests are. Like, all of those things come together to influence kind of how this is all going to work together. And embracing a little bit of chaos is okay. And just like, understanding that not everything is going to be within your control. You don't want to control everything. That sounds exhausting. And just kind of rolling
it is actually
is good. Yeah.
I feel like it's a tough lesson for us to learn, though, because the expectation is that you're always producing. You're always doing something that benefits your career. And it's like, actually, no, we need to rest. We need to live outside of work. And it's not necessarily frowned upon, because, of course, you should be a human being. But at the same time, if you lose sight of why you're doing this in the first place, you are just going to lose sight of yourself. And we don't want that. That's the only thing you can control, is what you do with your life for the most part.
Exactly. And I love that you mentioned resting and doing other things that are not, promoting your work or working, because capitalism has a way of getting in our little brains and telling us we need to produce all the time. But part of being a human, creating, doing whatever it is you do, is making sure that you are resting, taking care of yourself, and not always working and worrying about everything. And this has been, I say that because this has been a hard lesson for me to learn. And
oh my gosh, I can imagine.
I think it's an important one.
Yeah, and it's like, no one is gonna win the productivity Olympics if we're like not resting. It's like, calm down. Like, your book is still gonna come out on this date, or it's just gonna come out eventually, right? So calm down.
Calm down, everyone. I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna
keep it cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that on like a pillow or something and just look at it and be like, "Calm down," says Amparo.
Calm
down. Okay, this is a question from me because I'm selfish. Yay! But because I know you have done so much beyond young adult writing. You've edited the horror anthology, you've written for comics, you have a middle grade graphic novel coming out that looks so amazing. I just selfishly want to hear you talk about what are some of the differences kind of between writing for these different genres, and how have you liked experiencing a little bit of everything?
I feel like everything I've ever done in my career, or not everything, but the way that my career started was completely accidental because it wasn't planned, essentially. I thought that I was going to debut with one book, and that book never even like got finished. So I was thrust into the world of comics because of what we know as intellectual property. So sometimes publishing houses will develop ideas within, and they will seek authors or writers, unpublished writers, but agented to like actually write these projects. And that's essentially how my career started. My first book deal was IP, and then my second book deal was the middle grade that's coming out in August. That was my very second book deal ever.
I didn't know that. Oh my god.
Yes. So my first book deal was a graphic novel. That one is yet to come out or be announced, but it's on the way. Graphic novels take a long time.
Yeah.
And then the middle grade is essentially my second contract or my second book deal, but it'll be, I think, my 8th book, or like in general will be my 8th. But like in terms of the ones that I have written, it would qualify as my 5th. So yeah.
Okay, numbers.
It's very...
like
I love this.
This is just me throwing money at you. Like, take my money.
And then BLAZEWRATH Games was my very third book deal, but it was the first novel I ever published. So I would say that the main differences are in structure, format, but also the fact that I felt inadequate writing comics because I mainly just read them. And it just so happened that one of my closest friends, to this day, I still like consider her the reason why I am published in comics is because of her. She was taking a workshop with DC Comics. At the time, she needed someone to like beta read her script. I read it and I was like, I freaking love how you write scripts. Can I write a script? And so we workshopped a script together, and I sent it to my agent. I was like, do you like this script? And she was like, I do, but you don't illustrate, so it's harder for just an author to sell a project that is a graphic novel or a comic without an illustrator attached. So let's just keep this in the back pocket and see what happens. And it just so happened that that opportunity presented itself to audition, I guess, for projects. And that's essentially mainly how it's been. I published a short story with Marvel Comics, and that was the first thing I think I've ever done where I didn't have to audition, which is wild that I get to say that Marvel was like, Amparo, are you interested in writing for us? And I was like,
what a flex.
That real? Did someone spam my agent? Are we getting catfished? What is happening? This is weird. But yeah, it was a complete fluke. And so I feel like my alphabetic textbooks or my prose novels are actually like my own ideas and like the plan all along. The comics were just something that I never expected, and I've enjoyed immensely.
Oh, I love that. I just love how like you're like, let's just try everything. Let's do everything. Yeah. Let's master everything.
Sadly, I don't know how to like say no to myself sometimes. Like, what if I write about this and then I start and I either don't finish, but I always try to start, because if I don't start, then I'll never know if I'm going to do it or not. But yeah, it's essentially how my career has been. It's like, Amparo, are you available to like do the Hunger Games style challenge of like getting this job? I'm like, yes, always, because why not? What do I have to lose, you know?
You're like, have you met me? I am definitely going to try.
I don't have like any other hobby that completely takes me away from writing other than reality TV and like actually traveling, I guess. So I have enough time to brainstorm to do whatever it is needed in my professional career.
Amazing. Take it. We'll take all of the books by you, all the comics, like just give it all to me. So.
Well, I say the same for you.
Okay, we are almost out of time somehow because
oh my gosh,
I know, but there are two great questions that I want to make sure we get to, and I'm going to kind of combine them into one. So I love this. Just first dragons, then elves, after is Choopy. Can you give us a sneak peek at what's next? And then another question is there going to be a vampire novel soon? And I just loved like, you got to tell us Is there going to be a vampire now?
So no vampires that I'm aware of. I did have an idea back in the day for a vampire story, but that one was a little bit too similar to like other things that I've watched growing up. So I don't really have an original, something that I would be super passionate about in the vampire space. And in terms of what's next, we have Chupi coming out in August, and then next year is just me being in anthologies with short stories. And I'm so happy that I get to be in short stories with other authors that I admire, because yes, I have co-edited one. Shout out to Shamila Syed Mendez, who's also celebrating a book birthday this week. So incidentally, on another anthology that she co-edited. But I feel like being in the YA space with short stories as just a creator was one of my bucket list items. So that's definitely what's next. And I hope Johnny just asked for Vampire Love Island, and I wish I could.
Why not?
I wish.
Make it happen. We'll hop in a Zoom brainstorm and we can.
Yes, you can always count on Johnny for a good brainstorming session.
Yes.
Blood Island. He had just coined it Blood Island. I'm pretty sure that's taken. Someone has like taken it probably. Fang Island, maybe.
I love that. Do it.
Mia's like, do it. Why don't you do it? Stop bossing me around.
Seven Underworld. Oh, these are good ideas.
Oh, amazing.
You should just be writing these down.
Sure.
Like, I'm gonna
sadly, they're imprinted in my brain. Like they're seared into my soul now.
Well, I'm excited about the anthologies. I love that you just said, "Oh, I'm just in anthologies," as if that's not incredible.
Right. No, but what I mean is like it's something that I always wanted to do. Especially, I'm gonna be featured in a project that is fully contemporary, and it will be my very first time writing contemporary. And my story is called #Goals, and it's a Legally Blonde retelling.
Stop it.
But
I need
it's soccer,
it right
with
now.
Soccer. But with my brand, which is soccer.
Oh my God, give it to me. I can't believe I have to wait until next year.
Yeah, it's January. It's coming out in January. Yes, it's January 24th, I think. But I'm so excited. It's gonna be wild to debut as a to debut as a contemporary author. It's a dream come true.
I'm so excited. Like I said, just take my money, okay? Just take it.
Same for Crystal. I will literally camp out if needed. I'm going to pretend that I'm like waiting to get into a concert or to buy concert tickets in person. Yes.
Okay, let's do it. I'll camp out with you.
Yes.
Hi, welcome back.
That just seemed like to go by too fast. How'd you do that? How'd you make it go by so fast?
That's what happens when you put Crystal and myself together.
We were having a good time. It felt like we were just chatting.
It was such a good time. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And I always like to leave as the last question, where can the wonderful audience find you and follow you on social media to know what is going on with you both?
I don't know if they want to know what's going on. I'm kidding. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Amparo_Ortiz. And on TikTok, I'm Amparo_Ortiz_author because someone else took Amparo Ortiz first.
How dare they? I'm going to report them as impersonation.
How dare they?
If folks want to follow me, I am at Crystal Wrote, which is the past tense of write, everywhere. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I have a Facebook page. Like, why? I don't know. It's for my grandma mostly. I'm on TikTok, so find me, follow me, and let's be buddies.
Yes, please do. Crystal's social media is everything.
Oh, thank you.
Everything.
Say the same for you.
Yay!
And remember, everyone, it's not yet too late to get your own copy of, okay, it's a fast sunrise. The Last Sunrise of ETERNA.
I love this. I'm going to do that forever now. Yes. I'm so sorry to everyone.
Because while supplies last, you can get a signed book plate from Amparo. And as well as if you get Crystal's books, you get a signed book plate for Crystal right there.
So cute.
Heart, all for you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We hope you have a wonderful evening or day if you're watching this sometime in the future. I hope we all see you at our next virtual event. Amparo, thank you so much. Crystal, thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This was amazing. Happy book week.
Yes. Thank you all for being here.
Bye.
Bye.